Enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and interesting conversations as they happen. I am so pleased to again be in the company of Councilwoman Sharon Tucker of District 6.
Yes.
I have to keep going now. The Executive Director of Vincent Village and the founder of PACE, which is Project Activate Southeast.
Correct.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hi.
So you are very, very busy. And I wanted to start with how many months now, because it's months, it's not even, we can't even say a year, that you've been with Vincent Village?
Oh gosh, so at the end of December will be 3 months.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
3 months, 90 days.
And what I wanted to start with was, I wanted to ask you, when I was thinking about this conversation, and I asked you before we started if your district includes Vincent Village. So what are the parameters of your district in terms of as a city councilwoman?
Yeah, so the 6th district is the largest portion of southeast Fort Wayne. If I were going to give you borders, the easiest way to describe it would be the Calhoun Street going east. To the west boundary would be the Cloverleaf roundabout. We go south to the city limits, and then the northern boundary would be just below Hayden Street.
Okay. And so what I found, sometimes you always say that you wish like city officials could get out and be with their constituents and see what they face every day. And truly, with Vincent Village and your efforts, you are doing that.
Yeah.
And so you, to me, was like, this is exactly what we would, because you might think, well, she's a councilwoman, how, obviously you're not a full-time councilwoman, how does working with Vincent Village really impact that? But I think it's really great because you're really seeing the needs. So let's start first with, what is Vincent Village, what does it do, and who it serves?
Absolutely. So Vincent Village is a 30-year organization, 30-plus year organization that serves homeless families. So when you find yourself in the middle of a crisis and you have mom, dad, kids, mom, kids, dad, kids, dad, kids, we're all encompassed, right? We serve families though, so we will not serve single individuals because they can find services better placed elsewhere. But we provide then two things. Vincent Village first provides emergency shelter so that you can have a place to go. When you think about homelessness, the first thing that happens, and I want you to envision this, sheriff comes in and they say, you have to go. It's time to go. And look at it from the eyes of a little person. They have to leave everything that they have behind. They're leaving their Xbox, they're leaving their toys. Those are all material things. But in a lot of times they're leaving their experiences, they're leaving their friends, and sometimes they have to leave their schools.
And they're also leaving security and that foundation. And is that part of because of the fact that Fort Wayne has the 14th largest eviction rate in the country, or is it more?
It could be a lot of contributing factors. It could be a lot of contributing factors. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit later. But then what we do is we get you into our shelter. We give you an address. We give mom and dad a place to have a mail delivered, so then they can sign up for the services that they need. While they're in the shelter, we work with them twice a week to be able to get them the wraparound services that they need. Whether it is applying for TANF or whether it is applying to get your Social Security card, we help them there. You can stay in our shelter for up to 2 years, and we service and give you case management bi-weekly during that time.
Now,
we evaluate from there to determine what the next step should be for that family. It could be that they need supportive housing. So we partner with our other partners, Fort Wayne Housing Authority, get them a voucher. We partner with supportive housing that could have someone come in and do daily care for them. Or it could be that they can go into our Phase 2 program, which is where we have 31 houses in our neighborhood around our headquarters and around our shelter that we will put families in at a subsidized rent. And while they're in that subsidized renting unit, we again work with them. We look at their credit, we pull the reports, and we help them alleviate debt so that they can then become self-sufficient. And hopefully our goal is that the Phase 3 is that they go into home ownership. And so that program with Phase 2, you can have up to 3 to 5 years where we're working with you to be able to help get you a place of self-sufficiency.
Okay, so let's backtrack, and I want to break this up a little bit.
Sure.
So the first thing, though, is the majority of the families that you are serving are actually single mother households, correct?
It's mixed.
Oh, it
I
is
don't want to.
mixed?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to say that it's. We right now, if you looked at my village, I have single moms, I have single dads with kids, and I have married couples. So homelessness is experienced because of varying factors, right? A lot of times we want to say that it's eviction. A lot of times we want to believe that the people have made poor financial decisions. Some of that could be true, but it's not always true. We've had a family that, experienced a fire, no network, right? No safety net, no place to go, and found themselves in a bad position. So now what do they do? And those families can come to us and we will help get them on their feet. Had a job, had a car, but had no safety net to protect them when they lost everything in the family. So the face of homelessness looks different for every person. We've had a family whose children had the opportunity to be at a private school, and they found themselves in a position where they had no place to sleep at night. And so absolutely, we will take them into our shelter and give them the needs that they have, at the same time trying to make sure that we provide dignity and care for the family.
And so when most people think of a shelter, they sort of, because most people, it's really, truthfully, it's what they see on TV, right? So you typically think of a large, like, gymnasium with just lots of, or when we see it, like when there's a hurricane or something, and
Right.
So correct for me when you talk about in your shelter, like, does each family get their own, is it like an efficiency apartment, or is it more like they have a room and then there's a dining hall? Explain to me so that people get a sense, because I think there is another misperception of what is, not only who is impacted by homelessness, but what is a shelter?
Absolutely. So for Vincent Village, our shelter is 10 rooms. Each family in the room, we have the rooms built out based on family size. We can hold up to 8 family members in one room. We can hold as little as 2 family members in another room. We have access to be able to roll in cribs or roll in beds so that we can serve the family. And each family gets their own space. They get their own room to live in. And then we have communal spaces. So we have a kitchen where they all share, and we have a dining area where they can commune and share dinner experiences there. We also have a living room, family room set up where they can watch TV, whether individually or whether as a joint. COVID's played a little bit into how things work throughout the house, but those are the services that we provide. And also in the room, we have a space for our young people so that they can go and play without having to be in the other communal areas. Attached to our building, we have what we call youth services, and that's a room full of computers and books and small tables so that our children that are a little bit older can go into that space and have some, whether it's tutoring, some time away from mom and dad.
Right. So the idea is, so my family, so we don't, it's not like, I prepare dinner, it's like for my family, and someone else may be preparing dinner for their family, and then we can all, it's sort of like, it's like a shared kitchen in a sense, right?
Right. Because of COVID, in the past, we used to have a family day where the family cooks a meal for everybody in the shelter. But because of COVID, we have decided to do what we call shifts in the kitchen. And so we have 2 kitchens, and each family gets a shift in a time when they are responsible for cooking a meal for their family, clean the kitchen, and then the next family gets an opportunity to come in.
And then do you also offer, so for a lot of times, it's not only that their reason that they may be homeless is because for job, and then they need childcare. So do you also offer, like, does that after school or assistance there, or with the older kids babysitting? Is it that kind of services as well?
We do the full gamut of wraparound services, which is why the work we do is so important, because we do want to help our families get, if they come to us and they don't have employment, we have strict goals on trying to help them get employed. Right. We realize that childcare is one of the barriers, right? So we have partners with Fifi's Daycare, where we will assist them with the cost that it helps to get to take care of their children during daycare. Okay. There are times where families come into the shelter and they build relationships with other members in the shelter, and so they may work out a plan where someone watches kids and they do child care swapping, right? Okay. But for Vincent Village as a whole, we take every opportunity that we can to provide stability for that family, to move them from crisis to stability mode while they're in our shelter. And a lot of times that includes helping them with childcare. But we go one step further. Some families come without transportation, and so we have car care, which is available to take them to and from doctor's appointments, to and from grocery, until we can get them acclimated to the transportation system and or other opportunities with school busing.
Okay, but I think that you sort of glossed over it, but I think it's really important. You have 10 rooms. So how many people can you really, if you're filled, let's say, to ultimate capacity, how many people and families in this phase one is Vincent Village really able to assist at any one time?
So we can take in 10 families at any one time, and that can range from 6 down, right? We have been able to service, during our COVID time, we've been able to service as small as 20 families in a year's time. But if you look at people, it's a great number. Right. And keeping in mind that our goal is not to hold on to our families. No. Our goal is to help get them out of crisis and transition. But
that still takes probably, you said they could stay for up to 2 years, right? So, but you're at least talking it's going to take 9 to 12 months to put everything in place. So
our average shelter life is about 98 days.
Okay. Oh, that's
average.
Not bad. So then, but really, do you have a very long waiting list?
We do. So that's what's important, because we don't take families off of the street, right? We partner with other shelters. So, for example, one of our biggest partners is Just Neighbors. Just Neighbor provides service for families, but they have a time limit. Once Just Neighbors receives a family, they will then contact their partners, which we could be one, and say, do you have space? And we will do our interviews, because our program requires a lot of commitment. We will interview our families to make sure that they have the aptitude and the wherewithal to follow through our program. And if all things align, then we will welcome into our home.
There's such a great need for this. And if you think about, even though Just Neighbors has several partners, there's still, if you really aggregated all of the places, there are not that many for families.
Correct.
It's a real need.
Correct.
So, and then when you think about, so then you have phase 2, which is really also was a very innovative initiative that was created, which was the Bottle Works program, right? That's that housing. Is that correct?
So Bottle Works is not a Vincent Village, a Vincent Village unit. We were partnered with the developers to help get it off its feet, but we actually are not overseers of that unit.
But you also have but your clients, if they are ready to move into housing, you can.
Yeah, we have 31 houses.
Right, okay.
It's going to be 32 soon, because we're partnering with Habitat for Humanity, and they're building us a home. But we have 31 houses that we own, and in those houses, we will place, when our families are ready to move to the next step, we will provide a home for them on the reduced rent.
Okay.
And so we have places that we can put our families, and we work with them until we can get them to a position where they can graduate out of our program and into self-sufficiency.
And then hopefully then it would really be like the house that Habitat is building for you is not one that's ultimately they're going to own, it's really you're going to keep it within the Vincent Village family.
It's ours.
But the ideal would be once they're in your houses, then they could even work with Habitat for Humanity to build their own house.
So that's our phase 3 that we're hoping to develop.
Right.
We're in conversations right now, and it really is just knowing that we have the partnership, and it's so organic. It just happens so naturally with Habitat for Humanity and their CEO Andrew.
He's very innovative and progressive. Yes, very dynamic.
He's dynamic. But what we are looking to do is when our residents, our families, are in their 2nd to 3rd year, we can have them apply when the Habitat window opens, apply for their program while we're nurturing and working with them to get in the position of homeownership. They can be also earning their volunteer hours through Habitat. So when we're ready for them to graduate, the plan would be, and the ideal would be that they would be able to graduate into home ownership in a Habitat plan.
Okay.
So it's two good initiatives partnering together to just help see the end of of success for a person.
And so, but obviously 31 houses isn't enough.
Nope.
I mean, because we even just talk about the issue of affordable housing and even, even rental. I mean, the average rent in Fort Wayne is one of the fastest growing rent markets, and the majority of people spend more than 50% of their income on rent. So if you figure they're spending 50% on rent and then they're spending 25% on childcare, I mean, it's sort of like, how can you live? So, I mean, is the goal for Vincent Village around where you are is to continually, I mean, what would be your dream? How many houses would you want? And
so my vision is that we expand our footprint. And that's why our funding partners are so important, especially for us right now. I have a pretty aggressive vision that within the next 10 years, I'd like to see us get to 50 houses. We're at 31 right now, 32.
I think it's going to take you less than 10, Sharon.
Bringing on to 50. But at the same time, if you look at our neighborhood, we have older stock. Some of our houses were built in the 20s, so we need to raise some of them and put in new, at the same time expanding our footprint. I am a firm believer that if we bought in another 10 houses tomorrow, we could fill those 10
Without
houses
a doubt,
tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And it's just making sure that we do our due diligence, that the families can adapt to the program that we provide. So we want to be able to bring on new and to update and or remodel what we currently have. And so it's been my pleasure and my responsibility to kind of tell that story and share. And I'm grateful for individuals like yourself who give me the platform to let people know. Right now for Vincent Village, our 31 houses, when you look at the stock, we love the houses, we love our families, but there are some things that we could do to provide them care because, over a continuum of 10 years, which is the last time we've had a capital campaign, things start to wear and tear.
Then you need new roofs, or you need plumbing updates.
Absolutely. And when you think about putting young children into safe spaces, those are things that we're cognizant of.
Right, making sure the lead paint, if they're in their 20s and things like that. So, but what I want to pivot to is because you talked about the idea that it's really about building these relationships and partnerships, and so I'm interested also in two things. One is, as a councilwoman, and even though you are enmeshed and immersed in Southeast and this is your district, I'm very curious to hear how working day to day with, and the individuals at Vincent Village are not just from Southeast, I want to be clear, but you are seeing, literally, you are on the front line of what is happening in our community and in your district. So I'm very curious how that has changed your approach or how you think about your role as a councilwoman. And then my second part is, because a lot of what you have to do as a councilwoman is you've got to build alliances and networks and get people to play together. And I'm wondering how you see being able to use, obviously, that platform, and that's a very important place that you are, to help with building and getting people to stop thinking in their silos and coming together. But let's first start with how has, even in this short period of time, how has your work sort of changed your thinking or ideas, or even maybe what role council people and city government should have in the day-to-day lives of individuals?
So I come to work every day and I get my love cup filled. And I sat on the board of Vincent Village for just under 2 years before taking the executive director role. And I never imagined how satisfying the work that I do could be. And it's multiple things because it's all of my worlds blending together. I get an opportunity to run over to the shelter and go, we've got a new baby. I want to hold the baby. I want to hold the baby. And I get to just love on the baby. And then I get to look at mom and I get to hear her story. And I get to figure out ways that I can help this mom succeed so that I can help this young kid succeed. And it really all boils down to just loving on people, being a good neighbor. Part of being at Vincent Village, which is right in the core of my district, means that I'm able to see, hear, and help. I drive down the street and I see, okay, it's trash day. I can see when the cans have been picked up, when the cans haven't been picked up. Individuals know that they can come to me and say, hey, Sharon, we have this concern. I drive, even when residents, before taking the role, residents would call me and express a desire or a concern that they had, and I drive by it and see. In my role that I'm in now, it's just a trip on the way to work, right? It's a trip on the way to work, and I get an opportunity to see it. So from that aspect, there's no work to me, right? It's just what I do.
Right.
But then when I get to go down to City Hall, I get the opportunity to share the real life experiences with people, because we as people can get caught up in the circle that we live in and we run in all the time. And unknowingly, we can start to assume that everybody's life is like our life. And so I get an opportunity to speak to real truth. It's not all the same. So I can eat at Taco Bell or I could eat at Ruth Chris. It doesn't matter to me, because I'm always going to be grounded in knowing the fact that everybody doesn't have the same experiences. And until you get an opportunity to realize and walk in someone else's shoes, we never should take a judgment position of judgment, but we should always be open to learning what led a person to where they are, because it's really, homelessness really is a lot of uncomfortable decisions.
Right.
And sometimes those choices that you have to, they're all bad, right?
Right. You're
sometimes
trying to,
it's all
you're trying
bad
to just
choices.
pick the least worst
one, right? And so I love that I get the opportunity to both explain that to folks who've, for the majority of their life, have not had those downward pressures.
Right.
And I love that I get an opportunity to expose some of our families to newer things.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Coming up this holiday season, we're going to take the kids out on some excursions, and one of them is hot chocolate. And one of my staff were saying, well, we're going to buy hot chocolate, we're going to put it in thermostats, and we're going to cook it. And I go, no, we're not. We're going to take the kids to DeBrand's.
Right, I was going to say,
let them get DeBrand's downtown. It's an experience they've never had before.
And then you could even see, maybe take them ice skating, or even just walk around downtown. I mean, some of them probably have never been downtown. Or,
that exposure. So that's the Holiday of Lights Day that we're going to take them on a tour to see all the lights and give them an exposure to something different. And give the parents an exposure to something different. Hot chocolate, store-bought, is great. But DeBrand's is just something a little notch up.
Especially if you can get it in a chocolate cup, or, you know.
And it's an experience for a young kid that they will remember for the rest of their lives. And our whole purpose is to stop the cycle of generational homelessness. And how do you do that? You expose individuals to new things.
But I also think, I mean, I started this whole conversation by saying that I sometimes really wish that the type of work, or, you know, the volunteer types of things that public officials do, is the boots on the ground like you're doing. Because you do get out of your, you know, we all have this comfort zone, and traditionally it's 3 miles from where we live and 3 miles of where we work. So you're getting out of that comfort zone, and then that's a way to keep your biases in check, because you're going to see the diverse families. It's not who you think it is. They're not all who were in Southeast. I mean, you know, and so I think that that's really important. But I'm curious for two things. One is, I think probably you being right in the heart of your district also gives you're much more in touch with your constituents, because it's not like you have office hours.
Right.
You're there every day. So if they know, oh, well, I'm going to, you know, I know Sharon's going to be, you know, I'm just going to drop by, or you're going on the street, or even probably on your way to your car, somebody might grab you and say, you know, this is going on, or whatever. Or you said how you drive through. So I'm curious how that's changed you as a councilor, but I'm really also curious about how these experiences have changed what you think the role of our city government is. And the reason, in the context of which I want you to think about it, is because a majority of the programs in Fort Wayne that help the homeless and a lot of other social services are not organizations or entities sponsored by the city. They're actually sponsored by religious organizations. Now, that's not to say that they only help, like Catholic Charities does not only help Catholics, but it is these religious organizations that have an affiliation, and Vincent Village is one of them. And I'm curious I think that's a great thing, but I don't necessarily think that that should be how the city relies on the fact that there are these.
Well, let me help you out.
Okay.
So the first part of your question, I hope that my constituents know that I'm open. I publicize my personal cell phone number for anyone to be able to call. I answer that cell phone. I even call back the ones who leave me nasty messages, right? Because as their elected official, I believe that that's my responsibility. As the executive director of Vincent Village and a city council person, I can tell you what people don't know is that the city has a lot of programs that they fund through other entities to help individuals like myself, right? So let's look at the community block grant program that they have. The city sets aside dollars for individual programs, whether it is Jonathan Cooley at the Rescue Mission or whether it's Vincent Village, and you can apply for those grants. I talked earlier about the car care. That's only funded through a grant program from the city of Fort Wayne. And it's through our emergency shelter grant, right? And you can apply for those dollars. So there are things that are behind the scenes that people are not aware of that the city does a great job in helping.
So do you find that the city does a really good job of providing, let's say, entities like the Rescue Mission or Vincent Village or, you know, services, that those surrounding your client services and things like that? So they're saying we're not going to create our own programs, but we're going to support
the programs we have. And they're great partners.
But people don't know that.
Right.
I mean, people don't really understand. And
you have to be in the space. You'd have to be in the non-for-profit space of caring for individuals in order to really know that, right? Because we really only seek out data that's in the world that we exist in. And so if you're not in that space, you're not really aware of how that happens. But the city is a really great partner. And then they also do things like making sure that bus routes are in areas where, and that's the city link,
right?
But you know, that's a partnership.
But that's a really big thing that I think needs to be tackled, because I don't think those bus routes have been changed. I don't know how long, because if you look at the expansion of where Fort Wayne is going and where the buses go, and I mean, and you overlay certain needs of where people need to go. I mean, there needs to be, and the problem I think in some ways is that the majority of people who don't think about the buses because they don't need the buses.
But because we are a mobile, most people in our community have cars.
But even I joke, instead of worrying about is there parking downtown, why can't we just have express buses that could bring you downtown, and get people used to doing that as opposed to.
Well, CityLink is a great partner in as much as they are always open. They just the past quarter had free rides for anybody.
And now they're doing, they did through also on Saturdays for Holly shopping, they did the free rides.
Yeah.
So do you think that partly you have also a unique position because you're in the world of nonprofits, so you know all of where to apply for grants and things like that. But because of your role, and you have an inner working of the city and what the city's doing and programs, you know where to apply and how to get those programs and how to get them for your clients. Do you think that that helps you to be even more successful and really be able to create all of the types of programs and things you want for Vincent Village?
Probably a little bit of both. Probably a little bit of both. I think for me as a council person, I want to be cognizant that I'm being fair. And we apply just like all, and we have outcomes that we have to meet, right? We have outcomes that we have to meet. But I would be naive to think that my role in government hasn't made it easier for me to get into some rooms or into some spaces.
Right, and also, but you can also get the attention of the entire city council. I mean, you're there, so you can. I mean, and I believe that.
So here's what's a good benefit.
Okay.
City council doesn't make those decisions. So they're all, any grants that's applied for is all a department, or also, so there's no nepotism or there's no favoritism there, because the city council as fiscal body, we don't make those decisions. We approve that dollars are earmarked to departments, and then how those departments spend those dollars are up to. A lot of the grants that we apply from, they'll come from above, right? They come from the state or they come from the feds, and so the city council itself never has an ability to say that.
Let's be clear. There's no that you're not misusing. No, there's no misusing of your position. There's no, What I meant was, though, that you can sometimes bring the attention, or if there is an issue of why the city.
Absolutely, I should
the budget.
Absolutely use my pulpit to be able to help bring awareness to the needs that are out there for organizations.
And how the needs have changed because of certain things that have happened in the community. So I'm curious about one thing you said, and so you said that when somebody comes and you're going to get evicted and they say you have to leave now, right? And I think that's traditionally, is that the sheriff? Is that the count?
The sheriff does that, yeah.
So is there any way, like, because basically then what they do is they just take everything and throw it out on the street. Like, isn't there a program or something that people could give them? I mean, part of the problem is, like with most kids in foster care, they don't even have a suitcase. I mean, they come with garbage bags. But isn't there a way that you could say, like, to the sheriff, okay, I know that there's the whole thing they'll say, but they've been notified and they got all these notices and at this point, but isn't there a way that they could say, okay, you're going to have to be out by 6, or anything you don't take or whatever by that time, or at least maybe this is an idea for a program to get a supporter sponsor with a storage unit company, where just maybe, because maybe the fact is it really, what I always think, is it really necessary to just and throw all that stuff out on the curb? Plus, because I think that's very wasteful, and so I'm just wondering if there's a way to sort of build so that they don't. I know it's just stuff, but stuff is.
Yeah, I think part of it's a double-edged sword, right? Because most of the time individuals have been notified that, it's time for you to exit a place. By the time you see the stuff on the street, they've probably already left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've probably already left. And when you see those big move outs on the side of the street, it's the landlord emptying out his place so he can get it prepared for another renter.
But I just thought if there's just a way, like, because if you really, sometimes, I hate to say it, when you're in a situation, you sort of have wishful thinking and you think something, and you get the notices and stuff, but you really think you're going to be able to pull it off or something. But I just think if there's just a way, and maybe it is to talk to some storage companies that just, just for like 2 weeks, or maybe until they can get into a program or something, where they could just have that stuff. Because then you think about all of this, and I know that Mustard Seed is very good at doing this, and I know like the Habitat for Humanity, they resell a lot and they use that. Okay. But I'm just wondering if, again, I'm just thinking, because to me, if you just had that breadth, like, okay, that you could just store it.
A lot of it would fall, though, if we think through it, and I love the way that you're thinking about it. And my mind instantly goes to, how do we prepare, right? How do you pre-plan?
Right.
And that's what a lot of it has to do with. But the things that we need to think about is, in your mind, when you've gotten the notice that you have to leave, the last thing you're thinking about is, how am I going to rent a truck, get a storage,
Right.
and get this stuff moved? Most of the time you're in crisis mode, like, where am I going to go?
Right.
You're not even thinking about, grandma's Bible that you were gifted when grandma got called home, right?
But I think that those things are really important.
It is important, but we have no real way of knowing because it all goes through the courts.
And obviously, obviously, our whole goal would get to the point where we're not in this crisis mode and they're not being evicted and we're building it up. But is there a way that we can sort of have a plan so that they're not, or work with the courts to say, okay, and maybe this is another, I don't know, maybe it's a nonprofit
I think
or something.
I think we'd only know if we knew who was going to be evicted, and then when their eviction time would come,
or
that would be the only way we would know.
That we want to help you when you get that first, like maybe when they get that first eviction, there's like a buck slipper. I don't know how they deliver it. That says.
It's a great idea. I'm not sure how we would be able to carry it out. And keeping in mind, there are, like, we have had families that have storages, right, that they're trying to hold on to, which just becomes another burden, another debt.
Right. Well, they technically wouldn't hold on to it. I just think that there's a nonprofit would help them, because I just think sometimes, and then obviously, then if, that's what all those, you see that show where people go and buy the storage spaces.
But I think you're onto something. I'm just not sure how we execute it.
So maybe this is an idea that we could parlay into the next part of this conversation, which is this PACE program that you started, which is this Project Activate Southeast.
Right.
And the whole idea of this is really, just like I'm starting with this idea and saying, okay, is there a way we could do this? This is really what PACE is. It's to help people with an idea, or even if they're doing like something, let's say baking cakes or in their kitchen, right? To really be able to build into a true business, correct? So talk about this, and then I think I want to apply my PACE. I want to figure out how we could do this.
You can do this.
Or get somebody who's in the PACE program to explore this. Let's talk about what is the PACE program and how it works. And you just went through your first cohort of applicants, and you announced the winner for the first one. So talk about this tell me the whole process.
Absolutely. So Project Activate Southeast Fort Wayne, when I was driving around in my councilwoman mindset, right, I kept thinking, how can we create an opportunity for changing Southeast in terms of providing the amenities that many people have said that they are missing. And the real reality of how businesses and developers think about our community, right? And so I knew that for the changes that we need, some of them may have to be homegrown. So I started thinking about entrepreneurs. The challenge is that many times entrepreneurs don't have the startup cost to cover, or they don't have the ability to have CPA firms or marketing firms. You know that story, right?
Or they don't even have the understanding to know if they really want to be an entrepreneur. Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily want to be entrepreneurs, they want to be business owners, and there's a very big difference.
Yes.
And so I think this is something we do not only in Fort Wayne, but across the country. We've made a very big mistake of not understanding that you could be a business owner, but you don't have to be an entrepreneur. And really what you're talking about is what you're really trying to do is to do economic development organically.
Correct.
Because you can't force, you can't force and say, we're going to get a restaurant here and we're going to, you can't
force it.
It won't work. It has to be organically.
Right.
So what you're doing is saying, we have people in the community who have ideas and that it bubbles up, but they don't have, I joke, I always say when I start, I've started a lot of businesses, I always say, I just wish I had someone who could give me $10,000 so that I could, find out, how do I structure it? Should it be an LLC and S Corp? What do I need to do? Even to file as a business for the state, it costs $395.
All of those are real costs, real exposures that many young entrepreneurs don't have, but absolutely have great concepts, great ideas. And so Project Activate Southeast was just that. We created a space, fundraised for the money to be able to launch your business, but it had to be located Southeast Fort Wayne.
Right.
That was the guidelines that were publicized. The other thing is that the winner had to agree to take mentorship for a year. The individual will never get the opportunity to hold the 150 grants and services. But what we will do is, now that the winner has been awarded the backyard, it's an indoor-outdoor restaurant, what we will do now is we'll find space. And when we find that space, and the space needs to be betterments and improvements, we will get our partners that we have to do those betterments and improvements. They will send the bill to us. We'll go to our fiscal agent, who is the community foundation, and they will pay the bill.
Right.
So we never give the individual that money, because this isn't the lottery, right?
Right. Well, no,
this
but I
is
also,
how do you help you be successful?
And I also think giving them the money means that they may not use it in the right way. But I want to backtrack a little bit, because there's a lot more to this program initially.
Yeah.
So you set up the program, and then people had to apply to be part of it, right?
We had to apply to be a part of it.
And
we
then,
had 55 applicants.
Okay.
Once you applied, everyone who applied was able to move forward.
And then they had to go.
And then they had to go through 13 weeks of education through the NIC program, or the SEED program, which is BUILD,
Right.
or Kaufman program. And you had to earn your certificate of having completed those business plans program. We also offered 12 weeks of workshops. You didn't have to attend, but it just gave you a little bit of extra boost, where we called in professionals to help you, and you could answer questions. All of those professionals were entrepreneurs or business owners themselves. We partnered with the SCORE, with the Black Chamber of Commerce. We partnered with the Urban League, so that they could get additional support to be able to even determine if your idea
is a business.
Yes,
right. Because I always, so
because we're not creating jobs, we're trying to create entrepreneurs.
Right.
And
it's opportunity. And
yes,
so a lot of people think, or someone will say, oh, you make such great cakes, you should make this as a business. And they don't understand. So it's some ideas, like I have a lot of ideas, and I research some of them, and then, some are good. Some, the key is also you can't be so passionate on your idea,
right?
Because you also want feedback and stuff.
Right.
But like with the BUILD program, I know that you have to pay for that. So did PACE, when you had these 55
we paid for those.
Okay.
We are part of our partnership, part of our deal was to, when we were fundraising for
is to help them go through this.
Yep.
All right.
So everything doesn't equate to cash.
No.
But everything absolutely equates to a service, right? So one of the gifts that were given to us was for spaces in the program for our students to be able to go to.
Right, they gave you, so you had 55 applicants. Yeah. Then how many made it through the program?
So they self-weeded, right? We did not have to ask anyone to step out. Once the requirements were out there, people started to eliminate themselves. When we were done with the 12 weeks, we were roughly at 20 applicants.
That's pretty good.
Right? Yeah, we were roughly at 20. And from there, you had to show that you completed, and you had to show that you signed the contract and get that documentation in by the deadline. And there was no wavering from the deadline.
And so and then that required from there, then you had to put together your actual.
So then you did the next step, right? The next step was the actual pitch competition. That was ran by Crossroads the Mill, which is the largest pitch competition organization in Indiana. They're out of Bloomington, and they have pitch competitions down in Bloomington all the time. This was their first time partnering with someone outside of their neighborhood and community. And I was so honored to have them on our team. So then you had to put together your pitch deck.
Right.
We did a
and
lunch
how many
and
minutes
learn.
did you give them? 3. Usually they give you
3 to 4 minutes to do their pitch deck,
and
right?
So, and then how many? So that was first round. How many did you have from the 20? How many made it to that?
There were just under 10 that did their actual pitch deck, and that was a rigorous because video, PowerPoints, actual putting together your business portfolio, your performa, all of that information.
Plus honing it down to 3 minutes.
Right.
Right. And then so then you had that, and then they picked how many out of that?
Then our judges went through the applicants that were left, and they decided from there what 5 would move forward
to the final round.
Those 5 moved forward to last week's final pitch competition, and they gave their pitch live before 5 different judges.
Right. So now tell me, what were the 5 businesses, and what was, and who won, or who was selected? Because no, it's not about winning. And the other interesting thing is, because to parallel with Shark Tank, the big thing about Shark Tank is, for most of the business, it's really not about that they get the deal with the sharks. It's really the publicity and the promotion that they get on the show, and then maybe there's somebody else who contacts them, or just the number of orders they get. So, because I'm also curious about, of the 5, yes, 1 was selected, but I gotta believe those other 4, there's opportunity, and probably, you probably also saw for Pace that there needs to be, I mean, I always joke, there was a great ad campaign with mustard, because it's the number 2 condiment. So they did this whole campaign about, we're number 2, we're like, so there is a benefit of helping, the runner-ups, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean that they're, I mean, because ketchup and mustard's just as good as ketchup.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering if that's going to be another phase.
So what we did, so the businesses, there was King Sport, which is actually, his business is, at the end of his phases, he will have an indoor soccer field for soccer, football, depending on what you call it, right? So that's King Sport was one. The another one was Solomon's company, and Solomon is a self-expression t-shirt distributor, printer, self-expression. A third one was De Ruggiero Contracting, and they do HVAC, was the third. The fourth one was Little Lou's Brews and Books, and that is a brewery, African-American female-owned brewery, and a space to read books. And then the winner was The Backyard, and that again was an indoor-outdoor kitchen, but it is all kiosk operated.
And I have to tell you, so I have experienced and been involved in a lot of personally pitch competitions and stuff. And one of the things that I find so difficult is that most of them are always looking for tech companies. And it's always the tech that win. What I see here are goods and services and product. But all of these could benefit, and because the idea also is that you needed to open a retail location in Southeast.
Correct.
I would say all of these have great potential. I mean, the King Sport, I would put them in touch with the football, right? Because they're already talking about wanting to do a football league.
And he already owns the land. He's down by where Indiana Tech puts their track.
So I really would get him in touch with the Fort Wayne football team.
We're working on things,
And like, I mean, the Little Brews and Books, I mean, that could be an independent little bookstore. I mean, and then that could also become, because I remember when we talked about the Southeast plan, that there isn't like an entertainment venue and stuff. So if you could make the Brews and Books almost a little bigger, and then you could have a stage, I see all of these. So is that, I mean, I know you're focusing on the backyard, and that's great because you need more restaurants and opportunities for gathering places and everything. But I think that all of these are viable. So is there going to be not only are you going to hopefully do another Pace, but is there going to be like to use these and then even connect them with possible outside of Pace, but an investor?
So there were investors in the room that I am hopeful will make the connections, and we will make available to anyone who wants to have connection with one of the individuals. We will do that. They also had an opportunity to meet with our key sponsor, and he gave them words of encouragement and things
and that
to
was,
be able to move
was that,
forward. Tim and Libby Ash Foundation.
So I want to invite you and these individuals. I want to have them come to the table.
That would be
and
wonderful.
Let's talk about it and really
that
see.
Would be
because
wonderful.
I think, I mean, at first I thought, when I thought about Pace, I thought it was a very complicated, like all these steps and everything.
These moving parts.
And I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to get people to stick with it. And I think that, 50% is really great. And
self-elimination, here's the thing. When I say self-elimination, that's not a bad thing.
No.
Because if 12 weeks of sticking to the education is a challenge, imagine 12 months of sticking to business in the middle of COVID.
And an entrepreneur, I mean, I am one. I can tell you. Well, that's what I say. You have to have perseverance, grit, determination. And because as an entrepreneur, you are working 29 hours a day, 9 days a week. It is and that's why I say.
And you're the widget maker, marketer.
Let me tell you. I mean, I'm the everything. I mean, but the thing is that self-elimination is really important because some people they don't want to be an entrepreneur. They want to be a business owner. And a majority of people, they really don't even want to be a business owner. They just want a job that gives them flexibility and doesn't cap the amount they can make.
And here's the reality, right? When we launched the idea, we knew that there would be some people who would jump in just because, it's
and they
the
think they're
amount of
getting,
money,
well, they
or,
think they're getting the 150K.
Or just because it's, hey, maybe this is the thing that can take me. I am very proud of the individuals that made it to the final 10, right? Final 9, final 8. I'm proud of them because they stuck to it.
That's right.
I'm proud of the 5 that came through and that walked across that stage. The PACE program was for any business that wanted to launch or that wanted to take it from out of their home and put it into a brick and mortar. This time we had all new startups other than one. So this was new to them, very nervous. They were very scared. I'm very proud of them.
Right.
The hardest part was honing down real dollars. How do you put money to the widget of an idea? And being able to ask those questions and work with us. So I'm very, very proud of the individuals. I would be willing to help work with and promote any one of those.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely tell you, they have what it takes to be successful, even if they were not the one.
That's what I'm saying. The number 2,
Right,
I'm saying, think of my mustard and
Absolutely,
ketchup.
Absolutely.
And I think we got to do some stuff.
And our
for
judges had a hard time. I sat in the room quietly, as quiet as Sharon Tucker possibly can, and listened to the deliberations. And it really came down to what can activate Southeast Fort Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they landed on their decision. Mm-hmm. And they were torn.
Yeah.
They were torn because they were all really, really good ideas and concepts. Some needed to be tweaked a little bit more than others, but they're really good ideas. And ultimately, we were talking about what can activate Southeast Fort Wayne.
And ultimately, it brought attention to who is Southeast, what is Southeast, and where the opportunities are. And this is how that economic development grows organically.
Mm-hmm. So when we were in the back room, one of the contestants said, "Miss Sharon, you keep saying you're nervous. Why are you nervous? You don't have to go across and give." And I said, "You don't realize that while you pitch your business, you're launching mine.
That's right.
And your success is my success."
That's right. I always say, as an entrepreneur in my business, my goal is to help you be successful. Because if you're successful, I'm successful. Mm-hmm. And this is the way, right? Because this is something you created. It's a for-profit entity for you, and you have a fiscal sponsor. Mm-hmm. But this is in some ways also, Sharon, you're putting a lot of your, I'm not going to say your money, but some of your money, but my reputation,
my
but
state.
Everything that you have said about, you're putting on the line what you think Southeast can be, should be, and will be.
Absolutely.
And this was a demonstration of that.
Mm-hmm. So we're only halfway there. Right? Because we have a winner, but now we have a responsibility to help make sure that we give her all the services that she needs to launch.
Right. It's an entrepreneurial endeavor, helping an entrepreneur, and then also I think you're going to have a responsibility to look at all these other people, and then also I think you're going to have to look at what's going to be cohort number 2.
Right.
You're very busy,
if I call
Sharon.
you, answer. If I call you,
that's
answer.
right. Just like Sharon gives everybody their cell phone number.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I call you, answer.
That's
we
right.
need help.
But I think, it's very impressive in all that you've done, and and you really give to the community, and I'm really excited to see, because at first I didn't know about PACE because I thought it was very complicated, all these steps, but you pulled it off, and based on.
And we learned a lot.
And
there's some things will change.
But that's what you will change, and it's an entrepreneurial endeavor. So you're learning alongside.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of each And Good Company program, as you know from your previous visit, I ask guests the same 12 questions that French novelist Marcel Proust popularized from a Victorian parlor game. But you have already answered the original 12.
Okay.
So I have another baker's dozen for you.
Okay.
Okay. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness for me is knowing that I've been able to give God glory.
What is your greatest fear?
Falling short.
What is the trait that you most deplore in yourself?
Deplore? The one I hate the most. Self-doubt.
Which living person do you most admire?
My mom.
What is your greatest extravagance?
My purses.
What is your current state of mind?
Oh, I'm at peace.
On what occasion do you lie?
When my husband asks me questions.
Or how much your purse was? Or does he ever ask you how much your purses were? Yeah.
He knows.
He knows not to ask, right? Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
So my husband would say, I always say, you a lie, when somebody says something that I know is not accurate, right, or wrong. It's kind of our fun slang at home. You're a lie.
What talent would you most like to have?
Man, I wish I could sing and perform. I can hold a note, but I can't sing and perform like a Beyonce, right?
Right. What is your most treasured possession?
I would have to say wisdom.
What do you most value in your friends?
Truthfulness.
What is your greatest regret?
Having waited so late to start.
And if you were to die and come back as a person or thing, what would it be?
If I were to die and come back, I would still want to come back as myself, because I believe that I was fearfully and wonderfully made for this purpose.
Okay. Amen to that one. Well, I want to thank Councilwoman of the 6th District, Sharon Tucker. She's also the Executive Director of Vincent Village and the founder of the Project Activate Southeast for having a seat at our table. And you're going to be back with the PACE winner and finalists. We will plan that.
Let's get that scheduled.
Okay. And you can learn more about And Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at andgoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company. There you go.